There are 3 rules every officer at Blackgate Penitentiary must follow. Not because they make sense, but because the prison demands it. Rule 1. Nod when a dead man's name is called. Rule 2. Don't enter the execution chamber if it's cold. Rule 2. Rule 3. If you're scheduled to witness a second execution for the same inmate, don't. I thought they were just urban legends, until the system put me on a roster that should have been impossible. The first thing that hits you about Blackgate Penitentiary isn't the sight, though God knows she's ugly enough. A squat, brutalist behemoth of stained concrete and rusting iron crouched against a perpetually gray sky. No, the first thing is the sound, or rather, the symphony of despair. The constant low hum of fluorescent lights that never quite banish the shadows. The distant, echoing clang of steel doors slamming shut, punctuating the silence like periods in a sentence of endless misery. The murmur of hundreds of men breathing stale, recycled air, a sound that sinks into the concrete itself, and beneath it all, a deeper quiet, a waiting stillness that feels ancient and watchful. My name's Marcus Cole. Badge number 482. New correctional officer, transferred in from a medium security facility, upstate after I made a mistake. A procedural lapse, they called it. A moment in attention that cascaded into something ugly. Something that ended a career I thought I was building. Blackgate wasn't a promotion. It felt like exile, or maybe self-flagellation. Its reputation preceded it. Old, overcrowded, understaffed. A place where trouble festered in the damp shadows. But it was also rigid, structured, ruled by routine and regulations. Maybe here, surrounded by locks and bars and unwavering procedure, I could finally lock away my own failings. Follow the rules. All the rules, no matter what. That was the plan. Captain Davies handled my orientation. He looked like he'd been carved from the same grim stone as the prison itself. Face like a clenched fist, eyes like chips of slate that had seen too much and forgotten none of it. His office smelled of burnt coffee, disinfectant, and cheap, harsh tobacco. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Blackgate's different, Cole," he said, his voice a low gravel that seemed to scrape the air. He pushed a thick, worn binder across the scarred metal desk. "Official regulations. Learn 'em. Live 'em." He paused, fixing me with that unnerving stare. "Then there's the other regulations. The ones that keep things manageable." My brow furrowed. "Manageable, sir. This place is old," Davy said, leaning back, the springs of his chair groaning like a dying man. "Sees a lot, holds a lot. Sometimes things get out of line. Not just the inmates." He tapped a thick finger on the desk. "3 things you need to burn into your brain. Not in the book. Just need to know. For your own damn good." I leaned forward, intrigued despite the cold knot forming in my stomach. "1, Davy said, his voice flat, devoid of inflection. "Morning count, evening count. Sometimes the roster reader. They'll call a name. Maybe someone you know for a fact checked out permanently, did an infirmary, took a shift, maybe even sat in old Sparky or took the needle years ago." My stomach tightened. You hear a name that shouldn't be there, Cole. You don't question it. You don't look surprised. You just nod when your section is clear. "Keep the count clean on paper." "Got it?" nodded a ghost. Keep the paperwork tidy even if reality wasn't. It sounded like covering up a clerical error, but Davies' dead serious tone suggested otherwise. "Yes, sir." I managed. 2, he continued, his gaze distant for a moment, fixed on the barred window overlooking the main yard. "Execution wing. Section G. You might pull morning inspection duty there sometime. If you get to the chamber door." He meant the execution chamber itself, and it feels cold. Unnaturally cold. Colder than the rest of the wing. Colder than it's got any right to be. You skip the detailed interior check. Log it as secure, environmental controls stable. Don't go in. Just move on. But the inspection protocol requires you follow my damn orders, officer. Davies cut me off, his voice sharp now. That chamber, sometimes it holds on to things. Better to let them fade on their own. Don't need you stirring things up. The cold wasn't just temperature. It was presence. I understood. And 3, he leaned forward again, his voice dropping to a low growl. This one you pray never happens. You get assigned witness duty for an execution. Standard procedure for cause on rotation. But if you check that roster, check the inmate number, and you're absolutely certain that you've seen that same name, same number on an execution schedule before. Maybe weeks ago, months ago, doesn't matter. If you are assigned a witness, the second execution for the same damn person, his eyes bored into mine. You call in sick, you fake a family emergency, you get yourself reassigned. I don't care how, you do not attend. Understood? My mind reeled. A second execution? My mind reeled. A second execution for the same inmate. It was impossible. Insane. Sir, respectfully, how can... Don't ask how. Davy snapped. Just know the rule. Don't attend. Don't witness it twice. Some errors. Don't like being acknowledged publicly. He pushed back from the desk. That's it. Learn the book. Remember the other 3. Don't be stupid. Don't be a hero. Just do your time like everyone else in here. Walking out of his office, the regulated air of the admin wing felt heavy, charged. The rules circled in my head. Bizarre. Terrifying. Yet delivered with the mundane authority of a safety briefing. Was this hazing? Or was Blackgate truly as broken as its reputation suggested? Not just physically, but fundamentally. My first shift assignment was C block. Maximum security. As the heavy steel door clanged shut behind me, the sound echoing down the long tiered corridor lined with impassive, watching faces. The air grew thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale food, and simmering despair. The lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. A cold draft, smelling of damp concrete, and something else, something metallic like old blood, snaked around my ankles, though there were no open windows here. Down the corridor, I thought I saw another guard standing near the stairwell, silhouetted against the dim light, but when I blinked, the space was empty. The low murmur of the inmate seemed to die down as I walked, replaced by an unnerving, focused silence. The rules felt suddenly, horribly real. I gripped my baton, straightened my shoulders, trying to project an authority I didn't feel. Follow the rules. All of them. That's how you survive. But as I started my patrol down the echoing steel walkway, a deep tremor of fear vibrated beneath the surface. Fear not just of the living inmates, but of the impossible procedures designed to manage the dead, the cold, and the resurrected. Welcome to Blackgate. My sentence had begun. Days at Blackgate bled into one another. A monotonous cycle measured by the clang of steel doors, the shuffle of boots on concrete, the drone of the power system, and the ever-present hum of the lights that bleached all color from the world. C-Block was a pressure cooker. Maximum security, filled with men whose despair was a tangible entity, thick as the humid air in summer, biting as the drafts in winter. I learned the faces, the routines, the subtle shifts in tension that warned of impending trouble. I focused on procedure, on the meticulous execution of my duties. Follow the book. No mistakes this time. It was the only way I knew to keep the ghosts, both the prisons and my own, at bay. The sounds became my landscape. The rhythmic thump-thump from the laundry below, the distant shouts from the yard, the sudden jarring clatter of a dropped tray in the mess hall, the almost subliminal whisper of ventilation in the quieter corridors, and always the echo, turning every sharp noise into a prolonged decay. I learned to listen, to parse the normal from the abnormal, or tried to. Sometimes, late at night, walking the tiers, I'd hear a cough from a cell I knew was empty. Sometimes, the static on my shoulder radio would briefly resolve into what sounded chillingly like a sob before dissolving again. I told myself it was acoustics, stress, lack of sleep. Then came the morning count, about 3 weeks into my tenure. Well, it was always a tense procedure, ensuring every soul was accounted for. We stood at attention along the tiers, clipboards ready, as Sergeant Riley, a bull-necked veteran with eyes as hard as rivets, began reading the roster for C Block. Section 2, my section. His voice boomed, echoing off the steel and concrete. Miller, Patrick J. Yo, from a nearby cell. Check. Ortiz Hector R. Here. Check. Peterson David L. Silence. Riley glared at the cell. Peterson, a muffled grunt. Check. He continued down the list, the rhythm hypnotic, mundane, until he reached a name that made the air freeze in my lungs. Crane, Silas J. Crane, Silas the Butcher Crane. Executed 7 years ago. Lethal injection. High-profile case. I remembered reading about it even before I got into this line of work. He died. Officially. Absolutely. Yet Riley called his name like any other. Without pause, without inflection. My head swam. I risked a glance down the tier. Captain Davies stood near the main control unit, observing. He showed no reaction. None of the other veteran cars flinched. It was as if hearing a dead man called for count was perfectly normal. Riley waited, clipboard poised, silence stretched from Crane's designated cell. Number 217. Empty. Door sealed, according to the logs I'd checked. Just yesterday. Rule 1. If a name is read that shouldn't be alive, just nod. My past mistakes screamed at me. Report the discrepancy. Report the discrepancy. Correct the record. Procedure. But Davies's cold eyes from orientation, his flat warning, held me fast. The air felt thick, charged. I could feel the eyes of inmates nearby watching me, the new guy. Did they hear it too? Did they hear it too? Riley looked down the tier, his gaze sweeping over us, pausing fractionally on me, waiting for the section clear confirmation. My heart hammered. Just nod. Acknowledge the lie. Keep the paper reality intact. With immense effort, feeling like a traitor to reason itself, I gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Riley marked his clipboard. Section 2 clear, he bellowed, moving on to the next name as if nothing had happened. A wave of dizziness washed over me. I leaned subtly against the railing. Had I just helped maintain a phantom inmate on the prison roster? Why? What happened if you didn't nod? As Riley's voice droned on, I thought I heard it. A faint, dry chuckle, echoing from the direction of cell 217. When I risked a glance, the cell door looked darker, the shadows within deeper than they should have been. The rest of the shift passed in a daze. I tried to access Silas Crane's digital file during a break. Restricted. Access denied. Physical file request. Required captain's override. I walked past cell 217 later. It was empty, cold, silent. But as I passed, I felt a sudden, intense drop in temperature, raising goosebumps on my arms, and the distinct faint smell of formaldehyde. The rules weren't folklore. They weren't hazing. They were stitches holding together a reality that was actively unraveling at the seams here in Blackgate. And I was now complicit in holding the needle. Weeks turned into months. I settled into Blackgate's grim rhythm, a rhythm punctuated by low-grade anxiety and hypervigilance. I hadn't heard Crane's name called again. Maybe it only happened sporadically. But the knowledge of it sat like a cold stone in my gut. I saw things. Fleeting shadows in Monitor Room 4. Tools inexplicably moved in the workshop. lights flickering in unoccupied blocks. I heard things, whispers in the static, footsteps echoing mine in empty corridors, the distant sound of weeping from the old infirmary wing, long since closed. I logged none of it, just followed procedure, kept my head down, tried not to make another mistake. My past failure felt both distant and ever-present. Here, procedure wasn't just about safety or efficiency. Davies's rules suggested it was about maintaining reality itself. My previous lapse suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the potential consequences of questioning the count or acknowledging the impossible. Survival meant adherence, absolute, unquestioning adherence. Then, my name appeared on the early morning inspection rotation for G-Wing. Execution block. Even veteran guards hated G-Wing. It was isolated at the far end of the prison complex, connected by a long, echoing corridor. It housed a handful of inmates on death watch. The holding cells, the witness rooms, the chaplain's office, and at its heart, the chamber itself. Most states had moved away from the electric chair decades ago. But Blackgate's old Sparky was decommissioned but never removed, sitting like a grim relic in a side room. The current method was lethal injection, carried out in the newer sterile chamber next door. Still, the whole wing felt heavy, saturated with decades of fear, finality, and maybe something else. The inspection was scheduled for 500, before the prison fully woke. The corridor leading to G-Wing was unnaturally quiet, my footsteps echoing loudly off the cold concrete walls. The air grew noticeably colder as I approached, the usual prison smells replaced by a sharp, sterile, almost metallic tang. I passed the empty death watch cells, the small, grim witness room, with its thick glass window facing the chamber. Finally, I reached the execution chamber door. Heavy steel, painted institutional gray, with a small reinforced observation window set into it, currently dark. I put my hand on the metal handle. Ice, not just cold, but an intense, biting, unnatural cold that radiated through the thick steel, making me snatch my hand back. Condensation, or maybe frost, feathered the edges of the door frame near the floor, and the silence. Usually, you could hear the low hum of the ventilation system specific to the chamber, the faint electronic standby noise from the monitoring equipment. Tonight, nothing. Nothing. Absolute silence emanated from behind the door, a stillness far deeper than the quiet of the corridor. It felt like the silence I'd fled near St. Barnabas in that other life. No, Marcus, focus. It felt like the Rule 3 silence from the cop story. Damn it. It felt heavy, expectant, wrong. Rule 2. If the execution chamber is cold in the morning, skip inspection. My duty log required me to unlock the door, do a visual sweep, check the equipment logs, ensure security protocols were met. My past mistake, missing a step, not checking thoroughly, screamed at me to go in, to do the job properly this time, to prove I could follow procedure to the letter. What was a little cold, a little quiet, but Davies' warning, the memory of nodding at a dead man's name, the pervasive wrongness radiating from that door. It held me frozen. What waited on the other side of that cold steel? The lingering presence of the last man executed. Something older? Something drawn to the place? Don't stir things up. My hand trembled as I raised my pen to the logbook. I could hear my heart pounding in the dead quiet. Screw it. I wasn't making another mistake by being reckless. Following these rules, the unwritten ones, felt like the only sane procedure here. I scribbled quickly. G-Wing chamber secure. And Veva. No further action. A lie. An official lie. Preserving the record. As I turned to leave, back straight, forcing a calm I didn't feel, I heard it. Faint but unmistakable, from behind the steel door. A single, soft click, like a heavy relay switch engaging, or perhaps the sound of an old-fashioned camera shutter opening, then closing. Capturing what? My obedience? My fear? I walked away faster, not quite running, footsteps echoing too loudly down the cold corridor. The feeling of being watched, of having narrowly avoided seeing something I shouldn't, prickled the back of my neck all the way back to the main block. Later that week, the new duty rosters were posted. My eyes scanned the list, looking for my assignments. C-block rounds, infirmary escort, yard duty. And then, my blood turned to ice. Witness duty, scheduled execution. Inmate, Crane, Silas J. Id, #7718, date Thursday, April 10th, 600 hours. Thursday, next week. Crane, the man whose name I nodded at. The man executed 7 years ago. Rule 3. If you're assigned to witness a second execution for the same person, don't attend. It wasn't hypothetical anymore. It wasn't a story Davies told. It was right there, in black and white, on my official duty roster. They were scheduling an execution for a dead man, and I was assigned to watch. Okay, here's Chapter 4. Continuing Marcus's ordeal at Blackgate, as he grapples with the impossible assignment and the implications of Rule 3. Crane, Silas J. Id, #7718, witness duty. Coem Cole. The typed letters on the duty roster swam before my eyes. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a typo. It was there, stark and undeniable. Scheduled for 600 hours next Thursday. An execution date set for a man officially 7 years dead. And I was assigned to watch. Rule 3. If you're assigned to witness a second execution for the same person, don't attend. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. My breath hitched. I leaned against the bulletin board, pretending to study the rest of the roster, while my mind raced. How? Why? Was this a test? A glitch in the ancient prison bureaucracy? Or something else? Something tied to the cold chamber? The name called out during count? The very fabric of this place coming undone? My first instinct was procedure. Report the error. I went straight to my immediate supervisor, Lieutenant Thorne, a by-the-book guy, relatively new himself, thankfully not related to the artist from that other hellhole. Focus, Marcus. Lieutenant, I said, keeping my voice steady, pointing to the roster. There seems to be an error on the witness schedule for next Thursday. Inmate Crane, 7718. My understanding is he was executed several years ago. Thorne frowned, pulled up the schedule on his terminal, typed in the number, scrolled, frowned deeper. Says here status is pending execution. He read slowly, confusion warring with ingrained deference to the system. Huh? Must be a different Crane with the same number. Recycled maybe? Or just a clerical screw-up. Happens all the time with these old records. He shrugged, already losing interest. Doesn't matter. Schedule's posted. Witness duty stands unless the warden's office changes it. Anything else, Cole? A different Crane? No. I knew the case. Silas the Butcher Crane. Unforgettable. And the casual dismissal. Thorne didn't see it. Or didn't want to see it. I retreated. The bureaucratic brick wall solidifying around me. Next stop. Davies. I found him in the C-block control center, overseeing the midday meal distribution. The usual chaos. Clanging trays, shouting inmates, guards yelling orders. Seemed muted, distant through the thick glass. I waited until he was alone. Captain, I said, keeping my voice low. The roster. Next Thursday. Crane. Davies didn't need more. His eyes, already weary, seemed to age another decade. He ran a hand over his face. Saw that he grunted. Damn paperwork keeps slipping. Rule 3. Captain, I said, my voice barely a whisper. What do I do? He looked at me. A long, hard stare. What did the rule say, Cole? Don't attend. Then don't attend, he said flatly. Call in sick. Develop a sudden debilitating stomach flu Wednesday night. Trip down the stairs on your way in. I don't care how. Just make damn sure you are not in that witness room at 600 Thursday. But Lieutenant Thorne said the schedule stands unless Thorne doesn't know his ass from G-Wing. Davies snapped, his voice dangerously low. He sees paperwork. I see the patterns. You listen to me. This isn't a request. You find a way. If you show up in that observation room, bad things happen, Cole. Not just to the inmate, to the witnesses. Things get sticky. People get lost. He held my gaze. Like Carson, maybe. The implication was clear. Attending wasn't just breaking a rule. It was potentially fatal, a way to end up like my predecessor. The days leading up to Thursday were torture. Sleep evaporated entirely, replaced by long hours staring at the ceiling, the rules chanting in my head, the image of Crane's dead face from old news photos, superimposed over the impossible roster entry. My past mistake haunted me. That single procedural lapse had derailed my life. Faking illness, intentionally derelicting my duty now, felt like repeating the pattern, like inviting disaster. Yet, Davis' warning, the memory of the cold chamber, the impossible name called it count. They screamed louder than my sense of duty. Paranoia became my shadow. Every inmate's stare felt knowing. Every flicker of the light seemed like a prelude. The radio static seemed to coalesce around Crane's name, or whispers that sounded like witness. See, again. I jumped at every loud noise, saw movement in every peripheral shadow. I started losing track of time, shifts blurring together. Desperata, I used the station's archive terminal again, searching Blackgate's digitized execution records for Crane. Silas J, hash 7718. There it was. Executed April 5th, 7 years ago. Certificate of death signed. Body released to no family claimed. Body released to no family claimed. Then I searched for upcoming executions. And there it was again. Crane, Silas J, hash 7718. Scheduled April 10th, next week. 2 official contradictory records existing simultaneously in the system. A glitch, a paradox, and tucked away in a restricted archive folder, I accessed through a lucky guess at an old password scrawled on Carson's notes. Was it remember? I found fragmented reports, heavily redacted, mentioning temporal inconsistencies and reality recursion events, specifically linked to executions in G-Wing over the decades. One report theorized the prison's location on unusual geological formations caused localized stress fractures in the causal timeline, particularly during moments of intense electrical discharge or emotional trauma, like executions. It spoke of containment protocols, of record reconciliation procedures. The second execution wasn't a mistake. It was a procedure, a horrifying necessary ritual to force reality's paperwork to match, to stitch the timeline back together when an execution failed to stick. And witnessing it, maybe it anchored the witness to the glitch, pulled them into the recursion. Wednesday night arrived. Execution scheduled for 600 tomorrow. I rehearsed my sick call speech, pacing my small apartment, stomach churning with real nausea now. It felt wrong, cowardly, but the alternative, my service phone buzzed, a priority alert from the prison system. Not dispatch. Direct from the warden's office. Cole, M-482. Urgent, due to unforeseen staffing shortage. Co Riley. Medical leave? You are hereby reassigned effective immediately. Report to G-Wing Control Center. 500, April 10th. You will assist Captain Davies in overseeing execution protocol 7718 from the control booth. Warden Hemlock, my blood turned to ice. reassigned to the control booth, overseeing the protocol with Davies. Not just witnessing, directly involved. An order from the warden himself. No calling in sick now. No escape. Rule 3 was impossible to follow. The trap had been sprung. Tomorrow morning I was walking into the heart of the paradox. Okay, here is Chapter 5, detailing Marcus's experience during the impossible execution protocol at Blackgate. The air in G-Wing tasted like cold steel and disinfectant, overlaid with something else. A faint electric tang of ozone, almost like the air before a lightning strike. It felt thin, brittle. Guards moved with a forced, quiet efficiency. Their faces grim, eyes avoiding contact more than usual. The usual prison hum was absent here. Sounds were sharp, isolated. The click of my boots on the polished concrete. The distant clang of a gate, the low murmur of the chaplain speaking with the unseen condemned man. Further down the block, my own breath sounded too loud in my ears. The warden's order felt like a physical weight pressing down on me. No calling in sick. No convenient reassignment. Assist Captain Davies. Oversee Protocol 7718. Silas Crane. A ghost on the schedule. A ghost on the schedule. Rule 3 wasn't just a warning. It was a destination I was being forced towards. My past mistake, the procedural lapse I ran here to escape, seemed cosmically insignificant now. What was a missed check-in compared to witnessing a dead man die again? I reached the control booth, overlooking the execution chamber. It was small, cramped, filled with the low electronic hum of monitoring equipment. Thick, reinforced glass looked down into the sterile, pale green chamber itself. The gurney, the ivy stands, the observation window for the official witnesses on the far side. Davies was already there, standing silhouetted against the faint light from the control panels. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, the lines on his face carved deeper, his uniform immaculate, but somehow weary. He didn't turn as I entered. Cole, he acknowledged, his voice a low rumble. You're here. Warden's orders, Captain, I replied, my voice tight. I took my designated position, trying to appear calm, professional. My hands felt cold and numb. Just watch the monitors, log vitals as they appear. And stay quiet, Davies instructed, his eyes fixed on the chamber below. The next hour passed in a blur of tense, methodical preparation, relayed through the crackling intercom and observed on the monitors. The unseen witnesses were escorted into their room. Medical staff prepped the IV lines. The chaplain exited the chamber, his face pale. Then, the final walk. I watched on monitor 3 as Silas Crane was escorted into the chamber, except it looked like Crane from the old photos. Same build, same profile, but something was off. His movements were slightly jerky. His eyes held a vacant, unfocused look, like a badly puppeted marionette. Was it really him? Or just an echo? An imprint forced back into shape for this final act. My stomach churned. He was secured to the gurney, IV lines inserted. The warden's voice came over the intercom, tinny and formal, reading the final order. Did Crane have last words? The audio feed was momentarily lost in a burst of sharp static, then returned as the warden confirmed the procedure was commencing. Coincidence? I focused on the vital signs monitor. Heart pounding. Numbers appeared. Pulse. Respiration. Faint, but present. Impossible. Davy stood beside me, utterly still, watching the chamber, his face a mask. The chemicals began to flow. I saw it on the monitors, tracking the IV drip. The numbers on the vital signs monitor fluctuated erratically. Pulse jumped, then plummeted. Respiration hitched, grew shallow. Standard procedure. Except it wasn't. This was a man officially dead for 7 years. Then it happened. As the monitor flatlined, as the official time of death was about to be called, the lights in the control booth flickered violently. The hum of electronics spiked into a high-pitched whine. A wave of intense, bone-chilling cold swept through the booth, raising goosebumps on my arms, making my teeth chatter uncontrollably. The air crackled with static electricity. On the monitors, the image stuttered, dissolved into snow, then snapped back. But wrong. For a split second, I saw two figures on the gurney. Crane, still and pale, and superimposed over him. A shimmering, translucent double, thrashing silently. The vital signs monitor blipped. A strong, sudden heartbeat, then flatlined again. The digital clock on the wall jumped backwards a full second, then forwards again. Reality stuttered. Through the reinforced glass, the chamber itself seemed to ripple, the air distorting. The lights inside buzzed, casting strange, elongated shadows. The cold intensified, painful, now, and silence. Not total Rule 3 silence, but a sudden profound muting of the ambient sounds, like thick cotton being pressed against my ears. Beside me, Davies didn't flinch. While I stared, frozen in terror and disbelief, he moved with practiced calm. His hand went to an unmarked toggle switch on the main control panel, flipping it down decisively. Simultaneously, he keyed a small secondary intercom. Protocol Reconciliation 77,017-18 initiated. He stated, his voice flat, steady despite the chaos. Timestamp logged. He made a swift notation in a physical ledger beside the console, ignoring the glitching electronic logs. The moment he flipped the switch, the intense cold lessened slightly. The lights stabilized, though they still flickered erratically. The monitors cleared, now showing only the single, still form of Crane on the gurney. The muting effect lifted, the normal hum returning, though it sounded thin, fragile. The glitch, the paradox had passed. Or rather, it had been managed, corrected, reconciled. The official time of death was called. Procedures continued. Witnesses were escorted out, looking pale and shaken, whispering to each other, unsure of what they had truly seen in the flickering light and distorted sounds. Medical staff confirmed death, removed lines. Eventually, the chamber was empty again, sterile and silent, except for the lingering, unnatural chill. I finally found my voice, turning to Davies, shaking. Captain, what the hell was that? The monitors, the cold, Crane. Davies turned to face me fully, his slate-gray eyes holding no surprise, only a vast, soul-deep weariness. He picked up his coffee mug, though it was likely cold by now. That, he said grimly, his voice barely above a whisper, was keeping the book's balanced coal. Blackgate. She has leaks. Cracks in time. In death. Whatever you want to call it. Inmates check out, but sometimes they don't quite leave the roster. Records get crossed. Reality gets fuzzy. He gestured towards the empty chamber. Crane glitched years ago, never fully reconciled with his own death certificate. So, the system schedules a correction. Protocol 7718. A reconciliation. We make reality sign off on the paperwork. But how? I stammered. He was dead. Define dead. Cold, Davies said, a humorless smile touching his lips. Here, dead is just another entry in the ledger. Sometimes the ledger needs editing. Forcefully, he tapped the unmarked switch he'd flipped. We just help the process along. Contain the paradox before it spills out. He looked me up and down, taking in my trembling hands, my wide eyes. Rule 1 keeps the count straight on paper. Ignores the ghosts in the cells. Rule 2 keeps us away from the chamber when the residue is too strong after a reconciliation or something else. And Rule 3, his eyes hardened. Rule 3 keeps witnesses from validating the paradox. from getting caught in the loop, from ending up like Crane or worse. He leaned closer. You weren't supposed to see that, Cole. Warden must be testing you, but you did see it. You were here during a reconciliation. He clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder again, the gesture feeling less like camaraderie and more like a manacle locking into place. Welcome to the real Blackgate, Cole. Now you know why the records have to be kept clean. He released my shoulder, leaving a phantom chill behind. Your shift's almost over. Go file your standard witness report. Nothing unusual to note. I stood there, reeling, the sterile control booth suddenly feeling like the most dangerous place in the prison. I had followed the rules, or tried to, but now I knew the truth behind them. It wasn't about ghosts or hauntings, not really. It was about managing a broken reality, about meticulously maintaining a lie on paper, while the universe glitched and stuttered just beyond the bars. And now, I was part of the lie, part of the record keeping. My sentence at Blackgate had just become indefinite. I stumbled out of the G-Wing control booth like a man surfacing from underwater. The ordinary sounds of the prison, a distant alarm test, the clatter of a food cart, boots echoing on steel walkways, crashing in on me, feeling both deafeningly loud and utterly unreal. Davis's words echoed louder. Reconciliation, keeping the books balanced, making reality sign off on the paperwork. The world tilted. This wasn't just a prison housing criminals. It was a containment facility for reality itself. A place where death was negotiable, and history was subject to revision by administrative fiat. The rules weren't safety protocols. They were editorial guidelines for managing the unmanageable. My past mistake, the procedural error I'd obsessed over, felt laughably small, cosmically insignificant, yet it had led me here, to this place where procedure was reality, however fabricated. Back in the relative anonymity of the main block-changing room, I sank onto a bench, head in my hands. The adrenaline crash left me shaking, hollowed out. I could still feel the unnatural cold from G-Wing clinging to me. See the impossible flicker of Crane on the monitor. Hear Davy's calm voice initiating the reconciliation. How many other reconciliations had happened here? How many names called at count were just lingering errors in the system? How many cold spots were ignored daily? My locker felt alien. The mundane contents, spare uniform, worn paperbacks, a faded photo of my estranged sister, belonging to a life, a reality I no longer seemed to inhabit. I had to write the witness report for Crane's execution, the second one. Davis order. Nothing unusual to note. Sitting at a scarred desk in the deserted report room later, the pen felt heavy, alien in my hand. I stared at the blank form. Witness report. Execution protocol 77718. Crane. Silas J. Time. Procedure followed. Medical confirmation. Observations. My fingers trembled. Writing the lie felt like carving it into my own soul. But what was the alternative? Report the temporal stutter, the impossible vital signs, the spectral double? I'd be in a padded cell by nightfall. Another inconvenient anomaly to be reconciled. With painstaking slowness mimicking the bureaucratic crawl of the prison itself, I filled out the form. Procedure followed according to protocol. In matter deceased at 6:13 hours. No unusual incidents observed. I signed my name at the bottom. The first official lie. The first entry in my own cursed ledger. The next day, the warden summoned me. Barden Hemlock was a political appointee, rarely seen outside the admin building. His tailored suit jarring against Blackgate's grime. He offered no pleasantries, just studied me with cold, assessing eyes across his polished desk. Captain Davies informs me you assisted effectively during yesterday's sensitive procedure. Officer Cole, Hemlock said, his voice smooth. He also informs me you were privy to certain Operational necessities unique to this facility. Yes, sir, I managed. Blackgate has a long history, Hemlock continued, steepling his fingers. Certain environmental factors require specific management protocols to ensure continued safe and orderly operation, and to maintain accurate record-keeping in line with state mandates. It was a masterpiece of bureaucratic obfuscation. He knew I knew. He needed to know if I'd play along. Captain Davies believes your attention to detail could be valuable. He's recommended you assist him periodically with historical record audits and procedural reviews. It wasn't a request, it was an assignment. My sentence. I understand, sir, I said, the words tasting like ash. I'll assist Captain Davies as required. Hemlock gave a slight nod, satisfied. Excellent. Remember, officer, discretion is paramount. Blackgate operates under unique pressures. What happens here stays here. Understood, Rule Delta. Uttered with the full weight of his office. Understood, Warden. He dismissed me. Walking out, I felt the trap close completely. I wasn't just a CO anymore. I was being groomed as a keeper of the prison's terrible secrets, a custodian of its broken reality. Davies wasn't just my captain. He was my predecessor in a role I never applied for. The prison felt different now. I started noticing the small things. The way veteran guards subtly steered rookies away from certain cell blocks after dark. The deliberate misfiling of contradictory incident reports. The unusual frequency of power surges affecting the digital record system. The way inmates in the oldest block sometimes spoke of seeing guards who hadn't worked here in decades. It wasn't random chaos. It was a constant low-level maintenance of the official lie. One evening, compelled by a morbid need, I accessed the restricted archives again. I looked up Carson, my predecessor. His file was brief. Transferred out suddenly due to a family emergency. No forwarding address. But cross-referencing dates, I found the anomaly. His transfer date was 2 days after his signature appeared on a G-Wing inspection log. An inspection log for a morning Davies had explicitly told me the chamber had been active. Carson hadn't transferred. He'd broken Rule 2 or Rule 3, or maybe just seen too much during a reconciliation. And the records had been neatly, quietly corrected. I sat back, the screen's glow reflecting in my numb eyes. This was my future. Survive, comply, and maintain the ledger. Or become another redacted file. Another name whispered in the static. Years passed. The gray walls of Blackgate became the boundaries of my world. The clang of steel doors, the hum of bad lighting, the smell of disinfectant and despair. These were the constants. I rose through the ranks. Slowly, inevitably, Captain Davies retired. Not with a party or a pension, but with a quiet medical leave, from which he never returned. His final words to me weren't goodbye, but a weary instruction. Keep the books balanced, Cole. Don't let the errors compound. Now, I was the one briefing the new recruits, gauging their reactions to the 3 unofficial rules, deciding who might last, who might crack, who might need correction. I oversaw the duty rosters, subtly managing assignments around G-Wing, around certain dates, certain inmate numbers that pulsed with potential paradox. The rules became second nature, reflexes honed by terror and resignation. Morning count, Sergeant Riley's voice booms. Jenkins, Thomas R. Jenkins, hanged himself in solitary 5 years ago. I give the almost imperceptible nod. Section 4 clear. The rookie beside me frowns, opens his mouth. I shoot him a look that freezes the question on his lips. I'll have Davies' old talk with him later. Maintain the roster. Early morning inspection. G-Wing corridor. The oppressive cold radiating from the chamber door. Frost blooming near the floor. The dead silence from within. Rule 2. I take the logbook from the trembling junior officer assigned with me. Look secure, I say calmly, scribbling my initials, NV. Control stable, NFL. We walk away, leaving the cold and whatever resides within it undisturbed. Don't stir things up. The weekly execution schedule appears on my desk. My eyes scan the list, automatically searching for the impossible. There it is. Miller, Patrick J.E. Id hash 8034. Scheduled. Friday. 600 hours. Pat Miller died during a riot last fall. Clear record. Except here he is. Scheduled again. Rule 3. I pick up the phone. Dial scheduling. Admin error. On the G-Wing roster for Friday. I state flatly. Inmate 8034 status conflict. Reassign witness Co Maxwell. Cancel Co Green. Adjust transport logs accordingly. No questions asked. Just bureaucratic correction. Prevent validation of the paradox. It's a grim existence, haunted by knowledge complicit in deception. My past mistake, the one that brought me here, is a faded photograph now. Irrelevant. My current job is the only reality that matters. The meticulous, soul-crushing curation of Blackgate's official narrative against the constant pressure of glitching time, stubborn ghosts, and recurring death. Tonight, I'm working late, alone in the records office, surrounded by shelves of aging ledgers and the low hum of the servers, cross-referencing old paper files with the digitized system. A task day be started. A task I continue, hunting for discrepancies, for unreconciled errors before they destabilize further. I pull down a heavy personnel ledger from the 1970s, flip through the brittle pages, and freeze. Cole, Marcus, badge hash 482. Transfer in October 17th, 1978, 1978, 1978. No, that's impossible. My transfer was years ago, 21st century. This is wrong. A typo or a glitch? Has the prison's temporal instability finally reached out for its record keepers? Am I just another entry to be reconciled? A wave of dizziness. The memory of intense cold from the control booth. My hand trembles as I trace the faded ink. Is this my file? Or another Marcus call? Another Keo hash 482 from a different loop? A different timeline, whose record somehow bled into mine. The implications are staggering. Reality itself fraying at the edges right here in my hands. Panic, cold and familiar, rises in my throat. But years in Blackgate have taught me the required response. Not terror, not investigation. Correction. I take a deep, steadying breath. Open the locked drawer in my desk. Remove the official Blackgate record stamp. The bottle of archival ink. The special redaction fluid. The perfectly weighted pen reserved for ledger entries. With meticulous, practiced care, I obscure the impossible date, mix the ink to match the faded color, dip the pen, and with a steady hand, write in the correct transfer date, the one that aligns with my personnel file, with the official sanctioned timeline. I blot it carefully, apply the stamp, initial the correction in the margin. There, the record is clean again, the paradox contained. For now, I close the heavy ledger, the sound echoing slightly in the quiet office. The weight of it feels immense. I sit back, listening to the familiar hum of the prison around me, the distant clang of a door, the buzz of the lights, the low drone of the ventilation. The sounds of a reality meticulously maintained against impossible odds. My reality, my prison, my duty. I am the record keeper, and the books must always be balanced. Always. If this story made your skin crawl, don't forget to like the video. Share it with someone who loves disturbing tales, and drop a comment. What would you do if your job required keeping reality in check? And for more rules you were never meant to hear, subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules. There's always another story waiting in the dark.